Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on April the 9th, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, the Lilu to my Corbin Dallas.
Multipass. And Caffeine Rage.
That'll be in the Franken content at some point. On today's episode, we will, of course, be discussing the games that we've played this week. Fallout 76 is getting repair kits, and fans say they're pay to win. A real-life U.S. politician is banned from EVE Online for alleged corruption. Nintendo is the 9th most reputable company in the U.S. It's the only gaming company to crack the top 10. We'll have our weekly community corner with a quick discussion about game night and a Steam Discovery Queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. I think I said spamps. Hello, Rage. How are you?
Spamps. Oh, that's a new one.
Spamps. I don't think that's a word.
I think that's something that you have to use to send mail to spam. To the Hormel company.
Google says, did you mean stamps? No, I want results only for spamps. Spamps is a restaurant.
Of course it is.
In Pennsylvania. Spamps Restaurant. It's probably like a family name or something. Oh, Spamps Incorporated. Business bankruptcies.
Now at Spamps, do they have all the weird shit on their wall, like shenanigans?
They should. They should. All right, I'm going to close that away or get away from that for now. This is like we're at like a really weird place tonight. We've talked about Hitler and a Netflix drama comedy that's about Hitler.
No, it's a comedy. It's not a drama, or at least it's not listed as a comedy. At least it's not listed as a drama.
We talked about a comedy about Hitler and The Fifth Element and random things we didn't know. All of it is excellent Franken content, and you will hear it at some point, dear listener, but not today, aside from those little teases. But it'll probably be in the next Franken episode. I don't know. I need to finish editing the one, and then we've probably got enough content for a second one. It's just on my sort of nebulous list of things to do. But
outside of trademark spamps?
Yeah, spamps. I'm going to trademark that. We will see how long we go tonight. We, in terms of recording time, we're thinking it's going to be a short one just because we each had things going on. We didn't get to play as many games as we wanted, and it was a slow news week. Although, watch, as soon as we finish recording, it'll be like 14 gigantic news topics that would be interesting to talk about.
Well, that's how it always is. Don't worry, I'm monitoring Reddit.
Sweet. But, yeah, you went on a little adventure last week, and then my kid had his 5th birthday, and I had to entertain small children. We were going to go to the zoo, which was going to be tiring enough, going to the Knoxville Zoo with a small horde of children. And then we got rained out, so we had the party just at our house, and they were here for a while and, played and watched TV and did stuff, and my parents were here for a while, and that was okay. Surprisingly, they were well behaved. There was no politics discussion or anything. But it was many hours of entertainment. Plus
I was about to say,
setup.
They were well behaved. Are you talking about the children or your parents?
My parents, mostly. No, not the children. There were periods of time where the children were well behaved, but there was plenty of crying and screaming and, he touched me, he took my thing, he's not sharing with me. So, Sunday night, I closed myself in my office for several hours and fell asleep watching stuff on Amazon. I messaged you really quick to say hi, and then I kind of crashed on my couch in here. But we had he's discovered the joy of Lego, so we went and got my Legos from my parents' house down from the attic from when I was a kid. there must be 10,000 Lego in that huge container. And we went and we separated them out to try and find as many sets as we could. And then put them in little, smaller storage containers. Huh?
Knolling, yeah.
Knolling?
Knolling. Knolling is a unique way of taking photos or similar objects in an interesting manner. It's essentially grouping everything. But for Lego kits, it's getting all the like pieces together.
Ah. We didn't separate them out like piece by piece, but more color by color. And even that was still
just search Knolling Lego.
Okay.
And you'll see what I'm talking about. Another thing that you didn't know.
Interesting. Yeah.
I for one, blame
cool.
Adam Savage for this, for me knowing this.
That looks very satisfying, I have to say. As someone who is very much into sort of organizational, sort of repetitive type of tasks, that does look very, very satisfying.
And also it makes it a lot easier to follow the instructions because you're not digging through a bunch of bags.
Indeed. Yeah. But, so I have been very immersed in Legos for days at this point. I think I've had enough Legos for a little while, but my kid does not show any sign of slowing down, so.
Well, you're doomed.
Yep. As soon as I can get him into Minecraft, then all that shit can be digital and we can stop having to clean up 500 Legos off of the floor every day.
Legos, the modern caltrop.
Yeah. In his room, like, it's fine, because he's the one who has to be in there and step on all the Legos, but anything that's out in the hallway or in the living room, it's like, nope, that's got to be picked up. So, anyways, did you want to talk about your adventure for a minute? Or do you
I
want to move on to
can.
games?
I mean, it was possibly gaming related, but it didn't turn out that way. I decided that I needed to get out of the house for a little bit, and it was actually a decent day. Well, it started off a cold one, but it turned into fairly decent towards like late morning. So I decided, a lazy game reviewer has been a terrible influence on me. Let's go thrifting. And I did look for gaming-related stuff, and I did see a couple of gaming-related things, but there wasn't anything that jumped out at me. Maybe my local Goodwill / Salvation Army / just there's a couple that's run by local churches, just thrift stores. Well, I mean, that's typically how it runs anyway, right? Some sort of religious group. So I ended up just getting a bunch of like houseware stuff, just got a serving platter, a bunch of stuff for the kitchen, and a absolutely massive cookbook. I mean, I think I nearly killed the lady whenever I handed it to her to price check it because they didn't have anything listed for the books in that section of the store. It's like, what's the price on this? And I handed it to her with one hand, and she didn't. I guess she didn't. I think that a fairly big guy, probably, big book is probably going to be heavy, right?
Yeah.
I just hand it to her and she nearly drops it. Did have a couple interesting interactions on the bus. I got a fairly cheap set of wireless earbuds. I mean, completely wireless. And I put them in on the bus, and I turn, and there's just this guy just sitting there, his mouth agape, just like I blew his fucking mind. And it took me a moment to realize just why he was, just stunned, because, I got essentially a cheap version of the AirPods. The earbuds that have no wire whatsoever. They just look like earplugs.
Yeah.
And it just blew his mind that they're that small now. Let's see. There was another guy that was trying to load his prepaid phone, and he couldn't figure out which number was which on the receipt. And I don't mess with prepaid phones, so I didn't know, but I didn't care either. But it was hilarious watching him, go back and forth between like two 15, 20-digit numbers, just cussing the entire time. And this was like the first thing on the bus as well. I mean, I don't have a car, so in order for me to get into town, it's riding the bus, which, I only go, once every so often, so it's not that big a deal. But it's also, more entertaining.
Yeah.
And while I was waiting for the bus on the ride home, there was this little black guy that he had the speech pattern of pretty much every single stereotypical black preacher that you ever see in movies.
Okay.
He talks normally, and then all of a sudden, it just hammers home the point whenever he hits a period in a sentence.
With that,
yeah,
I can't quite mimic the cadence, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, he was. He saw me check when the bus was going to show up on my phone, and we got talking, and he was talking about how he was shunning technology, and he was talking about, well, when I got hit by this Ford Focus, and I'm just thinking, is this like a candid TV show? Is there a camera around here somewhere that I should know about? Because I didn't realize that people would actually talk like that. Casually, I should say,
Yeah.
And, I mean, we had a good conversation, but at the same time, I was thinking, stereotypes are true for a reason. And I know that makes me sound incredibly racist, but at the same time, it's the truth on this one, right?
Yeah.
Does that make it better or worse on me?
Yes and no. No, I don't think it makes you worse. It makes it worse.
I mean, at least I'm not voting Republican.
That is true.
I'm joking. I'm sure that there's very fine people on both sides.
Huh. That's interesting.
What?
Craig just says he hasn't heard anything from me for 5 minutes. That's something forgotten.
Well, I don't see Craig lighting up for whenever one of us talks.
That is, yep. Let's reset Craig.
Reset. Recording 2, Electric Boogaloo. I don't see Craig lighting up again.
I also don't see him lighting up.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh, there's some. Okay. So there's a little bit of a delay on him getting started, it looks like.
It lives! Kill it!
I don't know what happened there. I've never gotten that message before, so who knows? Maybe Craig just had a little bit of a hiccup or a stumble.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? So I guess that's enough of me being quasi-racist.
Probably. Let's go talk about the games, unless the game you're going to talk about is somehow racist. I don't know. I've never played this before.
Oh yeah, because it's a color war.
Yes.
Because it's a CCG.
Rage. Indeed. Tell me about the games or game that you played this week.
So I got an alpha invite to Mythgard, which is an upcoming CCG, collectible card game. And I'm not going to talk about a lot about this because, I mean, it's a CCG, so there's the card building mechanic, and it's pretty bog standard on that. But they do a couple of things that are interesting gameplay wise. So I would say this is like a combination of Magic the Gathering meets Hearthstone. In how they do the mana generation, as well as how, well, for one, the cards are a lot more verbose, and there's a lot more options tactically going on. So, Mythgard it has a story mode, but the first chapter's the only thing that's available in it so far. And it's right at the point where I have no idea what the fuck is going on. There's like 2 or 3 different protagonists that are all working against one another right now. But even though...
Okay.
I have to admit, I do like the girl that's left the underworld to find her mother solely because of the weapon that she uses. Alright?
Okay.
It's the Bat of Persuasion. I approve of this.
The Bat of Persuasion?
Yes.
Okay.
The game has a little bit of a humor about it, and it doesn't really come across in any of the screenshots that I could tell. It's a sci-fi fantasy. It's set somewhat in the future on a kind of semi-ruined Earth. And there's a corporation that's gathering up gods to harvest their blood for some reason, for some sort of drug. They don't really go that far into the story that's available so far. So a very interesting world to begin with. And there's a bit of a humor about it as well, like some of the red cards which are associated with the character that you start off the story with. And I'm blanking on her name right now. They're like the Minotaur. And the flavor text on it is like, well, his maze was likely on the back of a coloring book, and it's just this little miniature Minotaur. Minotaur.
Okay. I like that.
It's
cute and a good bun.
Yeah, another one of the protagonists is either the leader or high up of the Valkyries of the Storm, which is a biker chick gang. And you can see one of the screenshots is some of the card art that I'm sure that you'll appreciate, her assets.
Yeah, I saw that.
But you can see that it's set in like a modern or somewhat futuristic with a dragon attacking a jumbo jet for another card. So, yeah, that's the setting. And the story looks interesting so far. It really depends on just how far you go into it or what they do with it. And the deck that you're using on it is constantly changing due to the protagonist that you're using. And each one is associated with a different color, which changes the story-based deck. And as you level up, you get card packs, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill there. Card packs in this are 6 cards instead of 5, which is unusual, but, nothing groundbreaking. I didn't unlock the crafting mechanic yet, so I'm not sure how they're handling that. I know that there's some sort of disenchanting going on, so likely Hearthstone-based. But where things get interesting is gameplay, alright? This is a lane-based CCG.
Okay.
I think the Elder Scrolls card game is sort of like that. It's lane-based.
Yes.
Okay, so you have...
Most of the time it has 2 lanes. Occasionally you have 3.
On this, you have 7. All right?
Oh, okay.
You can see on one of the screenshots. So you may want to go there to follow along. You have 7 lanes. Minions that you summon could attack the 3 lanes in front of them. Either the one directly ahead or the one to the left or to the right. Unless they're on the ends, which then you have 2 choices. And then you have enchantments, which could alter those lanes. So in one of the story missions, there's an enchantment that is on the center lane on both sides, where if a minion occupies that, you can draw an extra card. As far as I can tell, there's not much card draw mechanics in the decks themselves, but I haven't unlocked enough of the decks to really be able to tell for certain. But card draw is king in this because of the mana system. The mana system is completely out there. So, whenever you start a game, you draw your hand. There's no mulligan system. Instead, how you power your cards is you essentially discard one of your cards back into the deck. Then whatever color your card is, it activates a gem on the ticker at the bottom and adds 1 to your total mana pool. So drawing a card that you can't use right away is actually kind of a good thing because you're cycling it back into your deck instead of just discarding it onto the boneyard. But it also makes it so that you have to be a little bit more strategic because a red card will give you a red gem, a yellow card gives you a yellow gem, so on. And some cards are multicolored, which is why I call it kind of a mixture of Magic the Gathering meets Hearthstone on this front, with a little bit of Elder Scrolls mixed in as well.
Okay.
And the strategy is figuring out, okay, this card I could use in 2 turns, or I could burn it to give me an extra mana gem and an extra mana. And those regenerate at the end of your turn, or at the start of your next turn, I should say. So it's the Hearthstone model there. It's just you're adding 1 to the pool. You can only do it once per turn. Or do I want to risk going with less mana but not burn as many of my cards so I have more options? It's an interesting strategic level to it that I actually really enjoyed so far. The other thing that makes me really think of Magic the Gathering is how they handle their legendaries. I mentioned how the cards are a lot more verbose. Well, the legendaries, as far as I could tell, all have an energy system about them, where whenever you summon them, this game feels like it's built around a mobile device just because it handles pretty much exclusively mouse-driven only, and there's a lot of swiping and scrolling by clicking and dragging. So obviously, some sort of mobile release at some point. Whenever you summon a legendary, the legendaries have different abilities that they can activate. And I'm not sure there's one shown on any of the screenshots, which is unfortunate. One of the ones that I found was a bard that's a blue legendary. That's a rock star. All right. So you summon him and he plays this guitar riff. And then he has different abilities. One is that generates energy for him is one of the few card draw mechanics I found, which is he draws a card, and then you have to discard a card back into your deck. So it's a cycle mechanic. Then, if he has so much energy built up, he's untargetable by spells, and you have to fight him in melee combat, or, in actual combat. If he's also able to bestow, by burning energy, that ability to other cards by giving them a keyword. It's a lot more interesting than Hearthstone's legendaries, to be perfectly honest. And it looked like pretty much all the legendaries had some sort of mechanic like that, where the legendary to generate energy does something that you have to have a strategic choice with. And then it has different abilities that you could use to burn. Like I saw one on another deck that was a damage ability where it was some sort of draw or something. I can't recall what the actual energy generation was, but it burnt energy and it damaged enemy minions. So it's essentially a battery, but you have to be strategic about it because this is Hearthstone mechanics on health. So unless you have the keyword regen, your health does not regenerate unless you actively heal. So once again, the strategy comes into play. And also, whenever you have the option to move across the board, but you can only move one space at a time. So your positioning on your minions is a lot more important than Hearthstone could ever hope to be, honestly. Just because of the enchantments, because of blocking of going around minions. Some minions are able to ignore other minions and attack directly if they have a free lane. Then there's other minions that are essentially now I'm blanking on the damn keyword from Hearthstone, where you have to attack them first.
Is it charge?
No, charge is
where you have where they're like a shield and they have to. It's been so long since I played Hearthstone.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
But they're the ones that are the shield guys. Mm-hmm. They have to be destroyed first.
Yeah, there's some. There's some that
else.
Draw fire. There's some that are able to ignore that. There's the regen mechanics that are on some. So there's a lot of various options going on. So far, I enjoyed it. It is going to be free to play eventually when it releases. It's just going to be, yet another CCG. So can it get a player base? And that's my big concern about it. I'm not sure if it's going to be on mobile. I'm actually double checking that. Yeah, it's going to be on mobile. It's going to be on iOS and Android. So it will have some sort of player base at least.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really good CCG.
Yeah, it has some definitely interesting mechanics. It has a puzzle mode already in it. It has essentially the draft mode, both a PvE and a PvP version of it. It has a full story mode, which has changing decks depending on the characters. So overall, I'm fairly impressed by it. I do have some nitpicks and also, some concerns just because, I didn't unlock enough to know just, what their final model is going to be, because right now it's being very generous with how many card packs you get. I don't know just how annoying the crafting mechanics are. Probably my biggest nitpick about it is its colors that it chooses. All right.
Okay.
It has blue, and it has yellow, orange, and red. It has a very reddish orange and a very orangish red. So you have to be very careful about those. I screwed up my draft for PvE just testing out that mode because I grabbed a card that I couldn't use, and it kind of screwed me over. I realize that's partly on me because I just wasn't paying attention to it, but at the same time, that's a pretty, easy to mistake thing. On the actual screenshots, it doesn't look as reddish or as orangish as it is on the draft mode, but the yellow, the orange, and the red are very similar on the cards. So that's an annoyance. I would say that that's one other thing I almost forgot, is that it has different powers and what they call a path system. So in Hearthstone, whenever you start second, you get the coin.
Right.
Which is considered the superior play, honestly, by most people. In this, things are a little bit different. You have powers, which is pretty much just direct comparison to Hearthstone. There's one that is a 2 damage to the enemy player. There's one that decreases health and attack by 1 till the start of your till the end of your turn, and all of them cost 2 mana. Yeah, it's pretty much you could draw a parallel. What's interesting is the path system. I only unlocked 1 so far, and there was others available on the arena that I can't recall what they are. But what they do is they're different base level powers for your entire deck. Where they show this off mostly is in the story mode with the Valkyries of the Storm. That particular deck has a lot of very low powered minions that you're meant to throw away to buff up other minions, okay? Usually a pretty annoying deck to have to deal with because it requires a lot of mana and a lot of card draw. Well, the version of the deck in the story mode, it's running this particular path that after losing 3 minions, it takes the bottom minion off the boneyard and puts it back in your hand for a one-off recast. And it's an interesting thing. It's different paths have different powers. Some are more damage focused. Some, I believe, heal. And it adds a little bit more variety to I'm a little hesitant to just, try to figure out what the meta would be on this game, because meta in card games are notorious on being very narrowly focused. So I'm not sure if that will happen to this game, if, it catches on to the point where a meta develops, I should say. But, pretty much anything that shakes up the card game mechanics, right? Is fully welcome in my books. And just the fact that it plays so differently. The first couple of games where they started introducing the lane mechanics, it was really refreshing, especially when they started introducing the enchantments where you have to figure out, okay, well, I could attack with this guy, or I could move him over and summon a bigger, badder minion into that enchantment to have that enchantment be on a stronger minion later on. Or some of the enchantments that, like I said, they're card draw based, where you basically just have to occupy them, and it becomes a more strategic level of trying to hold a point, essentially. It almost becomes a King of the Hill situation. So, yeah, overall, fairly impressed with it. We'll just see if they avoid mucking it up like Faria did.
I hope not. It sounds very interesting. I definitely want to get into it. I'm always on the lookout for a good CCG.
Yeah, and also, like I said, it has an interesting world building so far. Oh, one other thing. The deck building. And this is a very minor thing, but it's very important to me. All right, you know how in most CCGs, whenever you hit the card limit, that's it. No more adding cards.
Yes.
In this, you're allowed to go over the limit and then start paring down your deck. And it makes it so much easier to build your deck like that. I know it's a very minor thing, but for me, that's how I like to build my deck is, okay, let's throw everything in and then start paring down, instead of, okay, I want to build the formula from the base up. Also, it's 40 card decks instead of the typical 30 for CCG, which is interesting. But then again, yeah, with the mana generation thing going on, the extra 10 cards are probably going to come into play as essentially burn cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though they do cycle back into they do cycle back into the deck and not into the boneyard, though. So they are essentially shuffled back into play. So yeah, but having a bigger deck makes it so that it's less likely to be gamed, I guess. And I think the maximum was 4 copies of a particular card instead of the traditional 3. But yeah, overall, fairly impressed. Any questions?
I don't think so. Just that I want to play it.
Because the Valkyrie of the Storm?
Yes, but also because it just sounds like a really interesting, good
I will say that the voice acting for the story mode is a little bit lackluster. I mean, it's not terrible, but at the same time, it's not amazing. And they don't have a lot of voice acting for in the game just yet, but there's also a lot of placeholder art. And it's also hilarious because whenever you hit placeholder art, it's drawn with MS Paint. So you have all these,
nice.
You can see on the screenshots, all the very high-end art. And then you hit something that's placeholder, and it's just like a bear standing there that's drawn in MS Paint, and it says placeholder.
I kind of like that, though. It's funny. And an MS Paint CCG. Yes, please. Okay, cool. You want to go talk about a game we sort of barely briefly talked about last week, and not sure how much more we'll have to say this week?
Elder Scrolls Blade is now open up to the public for anyone that wants to play, or I should say anybody that could stomach it. Because, damn. Yeah,
you really don't like it.
Oh, there's
and
a shock.
I'm in this weird place about it.
You're in the place where I was with Plants vs. Zombies, where it feels a role that you want, but outside of it, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not... So compared to other Elder Scrolls games, it's bad. It's definitely the worst Elder Scrolls game I've ever played. But compared to a lot of other mobile games, it's pretty good. So it's just in this weird place of like, well, I would never play it unless I'm like on a plane to go visit my in-laws or at work and maybe I forgot my laptop, or for some reason the situation I'm in, I can't use my laptop, or, you know, a few other instances, maybe a long way to the doctor's office where I've got, you know, 30 minutes of guaranteed time, something like that. Like,
or I've been up for 24 hours and I'm so tired, but I'm past the point of being able to fall asleep, so, you know, load it up.
Yeah, for you. So, the biggest issue I have with it is honestly the controls. The mobile, on-screen, touchscreen controls are all terrible. As soon as controller support is in it, I think it'll be a lot more playable, which would make it a little more enjoyable. It wouldn't make it a better game, because I think that'll make a lot of the stuff, whether this is a distilled mobile game, way more obvious. But just moving around in a dungeon and stuff is really frustrating on the phone, because either you're using the on-screen joysticks, which are never quite precise, and then my big fat hands and thumbs are in the way, or you're using it's like tap and you run over to that location. But that doesn't always quite figure out where I want to go if I'm trying to go a long distance. So that gets annoying.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well whenever the first thing they introduce is, okay, well, this is the path to where you need to go next for your quest.
Yeah. The dungeons, did you actually do any of the quests and check out the dungeons?
Yeah, and they make Skyrim dungeons look very deep and complex.
Yeah, these dungeons are fairly linear.
Fairly.
There's like a couple of hidden rooms that you can find, and like some secrets. And like the first one is extremely limited because it's serving doubly as like an extended tutorial. The second one and the third one I went into were still fairly linear, but they had more sort of secret areas or whatever, not really any alternate paths. And as far as I know, the closest thing you have to sort of a free space to move around in is your town, which is fairly small. So it's a very closed-off game, which does not match how they tried to advertise this game at all.
Yeah,
didn't
they say that
E3
was
is full of bullshit? Yeah. But
E3 full of bullshit? Nah.
Yeah.
But didn't they call it essentially a full Elder Scrolls experience on a mobile device?
They did. They did do that.
Boy,
and it's not
either that or they experienced the Elder Scrolls very differently.
Or it's one of those things of like, play it for 20 hours and then it opens up into another game. But I can't imagine putting 20 hours into this game in any serious
I think
fashion.
I would be wishing for the sweet release of death by that point. I barely put 5 minutes into it after I got to town.
Yeah, so the combat is very, very simplified and distilled down. So I went back and I watched the E3, presentation on it, and they were showing combat that's currently not available in the game, where they were like swiping across the screen and it was doing sword strikes where they were swiping. You could do the tap combat like how it is currently, and you sort of tap and hold for a second, and there's like a concentric ring that comes in, and if you time it just right, you get a critical, and then you can press.
Which is so easy to do when your finger's in the way. And also, I found it fucking annoying because at least a couple of the different enemy types, you have to time the attack before they attack to be able to hit them while they're in range.
Yeah. Because they would lunge at you, and if they're not lunging at you, they're out of range, and you can't freely move around while you're in combat. You're locked into this sort of one-on-one, face-to-face combat, almost like you're having a conversation with them in Oblivion. Like you're just staring at them.
Which is exactly how the Elder Scrolls handles combat.
Did you get any abilities or magic spells?
Yeah, and it was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that changes it up a little bit because you now have additional things you can do, but you basically cycle through either one active spell at a time and one active ability at a time, which abilities are just like the special attacks you can pull off in the Elder Scrolls once you've leveled up a weapon skill a little bit, and then, you know, you could do the power attack, or you could go left or right when you attack to do like a side swipe or something like that.
Or the Ranger
like
Palm
those
Strike.
sorts of things.
Oh, wait, that's a better game.
But, you know, that's what they do. And those are, as far as I can tell, guaranteed hits. They could block something. I haven't seen an enemy that's done that. So, as far as I can tell, using a spell or an ability is a guaranteed hit. But they have a cooldown time. Plus, you have a mana bar
or stamina,
and a stamina bar that goes down during combat and doesn't regenerate during combat.
Yeah, which is
but it does
idiotic
after combat. So, I mean, my combat strategy is basically just like tap the screen as fast as I can to just keep attacking, because you can get enemies stun locked, and then they can't fight back. So only the enemies that sort of have an animation during their attack that like dodges them in and out on you. You can just keep sitting there attacking and stun lock an enemy.
Oh, it's a clicker. See, I have a far superior combat strategy. Uninstall.
You'll win every encounter that way. Then there's the city building aspect, which, okay, sure, whatever.
It's a mobile city builder.
Yeah, you collect resources on your various quests, and then there are resources that you can collect over time once you get a little bit farther and have buildings that do stuff. And you rebuild the town that you're in, and, you know, you rebuild the shops, and you can buy and sell weapons and armor in town, and potions, and things like that. You can.
Do you think they got the Elder Scrolls confused with the latest Fallout?
Probably. Then there are NPCs that show up in your town as you build buildings and upgrade stuff, and they can give you quests, and you can have some very basic interactions with them, but there's no spoken dialogue that I found other than the initial opening cutscene thing. So, you know, it's just text that you read on screen, which isn't, like, terrible, but it's, you know, it's on a mobile device, so it's all small.
That's not the Elder Scrolls experience. Where's the terrible voice acting? The same damn voice actor voicing 20 different characters.
Going back to the days of Morrowind, where you just had to read everything.
Yeah, but
I wonder if they thought that. They'll be like, oh, it'll be just like Morrowind.
Yeah, but Morrowind had an interesting story and actually good characters.
Yeah, I still don't really know what the story is. Like, the town's been attacked.
By some sort of blood
destroyed.
queen.
Yeah. And then you're someone that used to live in the town, and you're being tasked with rebuilding it.
Did you just escape from prison or something? Because...
Yeah, you were in prison. But even if you refuse to do the stuff that they tell you to do, you still have to do it anyways. It's stupid.
Oh, so
you'd be like, I don't want to do that.
So definitely the Fallout 4 method.
Yeah, you can be like, I'm not going to do that. Like, you can even say, like, I'm not doing that. I'll do it if you come with me. And the guy's like, oh, I'm not going to come with you. I'm old and frail. I'll be killed. And then
Meanwhile, it's old buff guys standing there, right? Because they can't bother with different character models.
Yeah. But, no, and then, like, the conversation just ends, and then you get the objective. Go to the dungeon and do whatever. And it's like, but I just said I wasn't going to do it. But you have to if you want to advance the game. So, I don't know why it even gives you the choice. So, oh, and there's chests, of course. Whenever you find stuff in a dungeon, you get a chest.
Yeah,
some of them have.
Yeah, one of the articles I saw about Elder Scrolls Blades, they within a couple hours racked up something like 2 or 3 weeks worth of chests timers.
Yeah, mine wasn't that bad, but I did get several days worth of timers after a couple of hours of playtime, and I was like, okay, well, that's something. I guess I should buy those unlocks if I want to get stuff. Because, of course, the microtransaction shop, air quotes, microtransaction shop, is fully functional and furnished.
Of course.
I mean, if it had just, again, if they had just done a single-player Elder Scrolls game, but on mobile, and you paid some money for it, like $10, that would have been fine. This would be, pretty acceptable at that level. Wouldn't expect too much out of it. The content that's there seems about right for a mobile game.
What, terrible?
Put a little more emphasis on the story as opposed to the microtransaction shop. But whatever. It's a mobile game. You get a pass on a lot of stuff with being an Elder Scrolls mobile game, but it's fairly boring. It's bad by any Elder Scrolls standard, but it's good enough as far as mobile games go to bump it above a lot of mobile games that I play or have played. It's just like sits in this very weird place, like I said when we first started talking, where the next time I'm on a plane, I'll probably play it, unless you have to be connected to play it, in which case
of course
I
you'll
won't
have to be.
it.
I mean, it has chess timers.
I haven't tried that yet.
I installed it. Hey, but look at it this way. There's one benefit about this.
What?
As of now, Skyrim is no longer my least favorite Elder Scrolls game, and it's no longer the worst.
Yep, that's something. Go Elder Scrolls Blades, I guess. Yeah, it's not that great. I'll probably play it some more, like once controller support's in, just to see if that makes it more bearable to play. And then again, maybe in those situations it would be a good time. But in general, yeah, I'm not gonna.
Honestly, with how the game is right now, I think it'd be more fun smashing my thumb with a ball-peen hammer.
That hurts. I've done that before.
Hey, but at least I'd be awake.
You would be awake. You would be. Well, definitely a mobile game that I'm moving from a mobile game that I'm not going to play much more to a game. I need to swap this around the list to a mobile game that I will play more, because I'm going to go ahead and do both of my mobile games before I do my other one. I've also been playing Star Trek Fleet Command.
Yeah, I've seen this pop up a couple times on the Play Store, but I hadn't messed with it. Because I wasn't sure if this was the one I played before or not. I don't think it is, though, looking at it a little bit closer.
The one you played before is probably Star Trek Timelines.
Yeah, which honestly was kind of shit.
Yeah, I didn't like Timelines.
To be fair, a lot of Star Trek games are kind of shit.
This is a more Clash of Clans type of, like, you build up a base and collect resources and have an alliance you join type of game. But it's got two things going for it that I really like that has kept me coming back to it quite a bit this weekend, in particular when I wasn't able to play as many PC games as I normally do. It's Star Trek, and it is set in the Star Trek reboot universe, so that's a little bit of a downside.
Oh,
but
the
in
bad
general,
timeline.
But in general, I really do like Star Trek, and I do like the newer Star Trek stuff as well. Not as good as the older stuff, but I don't think that it's bad. It's just not classic Star Trek. It's much
I
more
for one
action-focused.
blame Paramount.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, for a good reason. Because that's the reason why we haven't seen anything past Voyager on the timeline. Well, minus the reboot, showing Spock going back in time, is that there's a definitive cutoff point at the end of Voyager. And also they own the rights to a lot of the ship elements. So that's, or the uniform elements. So that's why whenever you look at Star Trek Discovery, it's like, boy, this seems like a knockoff Star Trek uniform. That's because it has to be.
Gotcha. Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Well, hey, I told you something you didn't know.
You did. You told me something I didn't know. The other thing that this game has going for it is that those typically these, Clash of Clans, whatever type, more sort of management, cow clicker type of games, you can only play it so much during, for a time period. And then basically you've done everything that you can. You're waiting on your build queue. You've expended all of your energy to do missions or attack other players or whatever. But this has a huge single player, air quotes, single player component to it, and there's no energy bars or anything like that to how much that you can play if you want to just sit around and play it. So you have you have a fleet of ships that you're able to build up as you progress through the game, and you just start with a single ship, and then as you get more space docks on your space station and upgrades and things, you can have, it looks like, up to a total of 6 ships. I don't know if there's anything that lets you get more or maybe combine multiple ships into fleets or something like that, because they keep talking about fleet battles, and I'm like, I've only done one-on-one ship combat whenever that comes up. But anyways, I mean, there's a huge galaxy to go to. Like, you've got
Is
like
it
a
far away?
It is. It's far away. You've got your local map, and then there's like a cluster, and then you can expand to see the entire galaxy map, and there's hundreds of star systems that you can go to, and each of the star systems is going to have at least one planet or one space station in it that gives out missions, and they sort of fall into the general, a lot of them fall into general mission types. Go and research an anomaly at this place. Go and track down an away team that was lost. Go and aid or assist a ship or a space station. Go and blow up pirates, things like that. There's a bunch of those types of missions, but there are several storyline missions that line up for several of the major factions. So there's the Federation, the Klingons, and the Romulans, and you can do faction missions for them to gain rep and eventually ally with a particular faction, which gives you access to their highest level tech. So, like the top Federation starship, for example, you can get is the Enterprise, or the Constitution class cruiser, which is what the USS Enterprise is. That's like the top level ship you can get for them. I think it's called the USS Enterprise in game, because I would say more people know Enterprise versus Constitution class cruiser, but whatever. That's what it is. But so you get that, and you can get things like a Klingon Warbird and the Bird of Prey if you level up the Klingons. And I'm not as familiar with the Romulan ships, but that's, you engage in those faction missions to get those specific ship types and rank up your rank with them. And it looks like eventually it locks you in to a specific faction.
Yeah.
And there are areas of space that are controlled by those factions, and they're dangerous to you if you're not part of that faction. I'm kind of neutral to everybody right now, so I can wander around wherever, but I'm a very low level, and there don't seem to be sort of areas of space that's like, this is the low level players area, and this is the mid level. Like, there's scattered high and low level star systems all over the place, so you can sort of generally wander around freely and explore. Your ship has a minimum or like a maximum range that they can jump at one time, or go into warp space for at a time. But I mean, once you get to a destination system, if you want to keep going, that limit is reset, and it increases as your ship rank goes up and you get higher level ships. And so, but I mean, there's no time limit on that. Basically, you can play for as long as you want. The only thing that sort of limits you is like if your ship gets destroyed or too badly damaged, it has to be taken back to the starbase and repaired, and there's sort of a cooldown on that. But once you get multiple ships, that becomes much less of an issue, because you've got at least 2 that you can control around all the time, and you get a second ship fairly quickly. I'm working on my 3rd ship right now, and I've played it for a total of maybe 3 hours combined. It does have lots of other mobile foibles too. I'm talking about it more like it's a full game, but this is, very much a mobile game. All of the officers that you have, which are how you give your ship sort of special abilities and stat boosts and things like that, come in card packs, and they get leveled up by getting, multiples of the same card of the same.
Oh, gotcha.
The same, yeah, that gotcha mechanic. I haven't encountered any PvP yet. I don't know if it's because I'm too low of a level or if I just haven't ran into anybody who wanted to attack me yet. There are lots of people who play this game, so I'm thinking it's the former and not the latter. I know there's PvP and that your base can be attacked and your ship can be attacked, but it didn't say, like, you have X amount of days of protection from players attacking you. Like, there was nothing that told me that. So I don't know why I haven't been in combat yet. I joined an alliance, like, immediately. I just picked, like, a North American alliance, and the people in there have been generally nice and helpful. It's kind of a crapshoot what you get in these games, so I can't say if that speaks to the overall player base or if I just got lucky with a good alliance. But I was like, hey, just looking for someone to help me figure out how to play the game, and do I have to spend bunches of money, or do you have to grind, or can you grind? And just like a lot of these mobile games, at some point it does become pretty grindy if you don't want to spend money. I'm not really there yet, and I don't know if I'll actually play it long enough to hit that sort of progression wall. But, I mean, I'm enjoying my time with it as far as mobile games go. If you like Star Trek, and you want something on your phone that you can play for more than a few minutes at a time, I mean, this is certainly a game to look at. I've enjoyed it. I'm gonna keep playing it at least for the time being.
Yeah, remind me later to share with you a couple of YouTube channels of Star Trek ship breakdowns, as in actual technical stuff about the different starships.
Yeah, I've got one that I watch that does that, Space Doc. I mean, he does other ships other than Star Trek ships, but...
I think there's that one, and there's like one or two more that's popped up on my YouTube recently because of him. Like, talking about how Worf didn't have to almost go on a suicide run because, hey, the Defiant can launch its deflector dish as a giant-ass missile.
Yeah.
But then again, he is a Klingon, so...
Today is a good day to die. Prepare for ramming speed. Yeah, the Defiant wouldn't have done anything against a Borg cube.
At least with that
ramming
attitude.
it. So yeah, then finally the last game that I played this week, an actual PC game, is called War Theater. War Theater is what I would call a steampunk, a toxic steampunk themed spiritual successor to Advanced Wars.
Okay, well, that's a thing.
It looks and plays, well, looks as in like the style of it, not the actual looks, but just sort of the general look and feel of the game is pretty much a copy of Advanced Wars. The maps, the way the units will look on the overworld map, the game mechanics, for the most part. There's a couple things I'll talk about here in a second that are different. But whenever you do combat, the way that it looks with the two sort of opposing sides shooting each other, the way that works and looks, just a copy of Advanced Wars. And then it plays out the same with the grid on the map and everything, which I am not complaining. I loved Advanced Wars. It was one of the first Game Boy Advance games I ever had. And I'm not sure how many Advanced Wars games there are. I'm aware of 3 for sure. But anyways, that's an excellent strategy game that always had a very deep story to it and some very interesting characters that this game also seems to have taken inspiration from. I haven't played it a ton. I've only got to play it for a little over an hour, which normally I don't talk about a game if I played it for that much time, unless it's just like, this game is terrible, stay away from it. But I'm pretty confident after playing it for an hour that unless it takes like a massive left turn, which I would report on later on down the road, I'm pretty confident in what this game is going to be. And I'm not sure if the world is post-apocalyptic, but I say toxic because everything looks very gross and grody and polluted.
Well, that rat does have a resemblance to Britney Spears.
Yeah, that's the Rat Queen, or the Rat Mother. That's the first character that you get in campaign mode. But yeah, the look and feel of the game is very sort of gross and grody, but in a way that's kind of charming. It's hard to explain, but it's just the way that the characters seem to talk and interact with one another.
90s
when
cartoons.
It's portraying the story to you. Yeah. Exactly, actually.
And you said it was hard to explain.
Well, I just didn't think of that. But anyways, so the main difference in how the game plays is that instead of having the leader confer some sort of bonus to your military, that you have leaders or hero units that are on the field with you, and each of them has special abilities and different unique things in combat. So the Rat Mother, for example, is classed as an infantry unit, so they gets the same overall general bonuses and weaknesses as other infantry. But the attack that she has is, she calls in like a minion army of baby rats that have like these little poison toxin injectors that like swarm enemies, and she's basically a one-hit kill to any infantry and does massive damage to any other ground units. But because she doesn't shoot, she can't actually engage air units. And then each of the heroes have special abilities. So the Rat Mother, she has 2, and I think all of the leaders have 2. One that costs 2 action points and one that costs 4 action points. And the first one is like a little smog.
Crippling
it's
smog.
called Crippling Smog.
Yeah, well,
and it covers
I was about to say, I'm looking at it here on the screenshots.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it covers a small area on the field that slows any enemy units that walk through it for, I think it's 2 turns. And then Poison Gas, which goes out in a huge radius around the Rat Mother. And it's a damage over time to every unit that's caught in the poison field. And I'm not sure how many turns it lasts for. I've only used it once. But it does 15% damage every turn to every unit who's caught in it. So, and each hero has different abilities. There's one that their abilities are healing based. There's one that has got like extra ranged attacks. Like their attacks have double the range of anything else. There's one that buffs allied units. So that's the main difference in combat. You're able to do a lot more with specific hero unit. There's some other minor differences as well. All of the units have extended ranges they can attack for. So in Advanced Wars, if you've ever played that before, most of the units can only attack adjacent tiles. There's a couple of units that can attack 2 tiles out, and then the artillery units can't attack right next to them, but they have a range of like 3 or something like that. But every unit has at least a range of 2, and there are some units that have much greater ranges up to like 5 or 6 tiles away, but they can't attack maybe 2 or 3 tiles right next to them. So you kind of have to learn the ranges a little bit. But it's a very fun game. I like it a lot. I'm definitely going to be playing it a lot more. I've got a couple of small issues with it. The game does play with a mouse, but it's weird with a mouse. So if you use just the keyboard or a controller, that's where the game makes the most sense, because you can see that it's scrolling through things, and you get like a path when you're trying to figure out where you want your troops to go, and you can see where they're going to go through or direct them through certain spaces. If you're just using the mouse to click on things, you don't get any feedback. So if you just click to move, the units will move, and they'll just go in the most direct path for it. You don't get any confirmation for what it is that you're hovering over, and you don't get tooltips.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like this game has been designed for mobile. I just think that whoever made this game
played too many mobile games.
Maybe they played Advance Wars too much, and they didn't think about using the mouse to control the game. They were just like, oh, everybody who plays this will use a controller or the keyboard. It works, but it feels weird. And then the other thing is that you can't save in the middle of a mission. So I discovered this by accident the first time, because I was playing it at work, and I needed to close the game and get ready for a client. I was like, oh, I'll just save. Well, it didn't save. Like, there's no save option. And I was like, maybe if I go to back out, it'll auto-save it? And it does say, like, whenever you go to leave, it's like you're exiting from campaign mode. Your game will be saved. and so you can return to it later. But that just means that if you don't close the game, you can come back and resume where you were. You can swap sort of like on the fly between different multiplayer matches so that you can play kind of asynchronously. And you can go back and forth between single player and multiplayer at the same time. And it's got sort of like, I guess, save states for that. But as soon as you close the game and come back, anything that you had going on is not saved. So you have to restart a mission over. So you have to complete it in one sitting or at least not close the game and come back to it. And that's really frustrating. I mean, that seems like super basic functionality to add. The first few missions only take about 15 to 20 minutes to play through. So that's not a horrible time commitment, but I imagine if this follows the Advance Wars style of story progression, you will get some very long missions towards the end that have sort of multiple parts to them or multiple armies and characters included in one go. And some of those could take hours to complete as they sort of piled onto one another. But the way it was done, they were like one big mission. And that would be extremely frustrating to not be able to save and quit out of and come back to later. So I'm actually going to contact the dev about this because I got early access to this game. It doesn't release until... When does it release? Oh, no, you can buy it right now. Okay. I think it just went up then. Because when I got the key a few days ago, it was not available in the store, I don't think. Nope, it released March 16th. Maybe I'm confusing it with another game. But still, it's not been out for very long. I'm going to contact the developer if I can and ask them about that functionality. Because you definitely need to be able to save in the middle of a mission and come back to it. But other than those two little things, sort of wonky mouse controls and then inability to save, I don't really have anything bad to say about the game. It runs like a charm. It didn't even have my laptop fan working overtime to keep cool. It was an easy 60. There's really no graphics options. You can do full screen on or off, and you can turn on or off VSync, and that's it. But there's really no need to. I don't want to say that the game was using sprites. I think that's the wrong way to say it, but I mean, there's very little going on under the hood. The game is tiny. It's only a couple hundred megabytes, and it barely uses any processor, RAM, anything to run. Very minimal footprint. So, could run on a potato.
And does.
So yeah, very fun game. It's only $10. I think if you have played Advance Wars before and you like the Advance Wars style of game, this is a really good sort of spiritual successor. So as long as the actual sort of theming of it doesn't gross you out or make you feel weird.
Basically, if you can watch Invader Zim.
Yeah, if you can watch Invader Zim and you like that, then you'll like this. Recommend.
Hashtag Doom.
Hashtag Big Yawn. Oh. Also, hashtag drink water.
Hashtag carbohydrate.
Oh, that was hilarious. I don't want to hydrate. I want to carbohydrate. Me too. But that would kill me. Literally. But, anyways, with that out of the way, do we need to take a quick break? Or
I think I'm okay unless you need to.
No, I'm good. A little hot in here, but I'm not going to turn on the air conditioner.
So, speaking of killing things.
Indeed? Question mark? Fallout 76 is getting repair kits.
Dead, though.
Ah, touche. We can beat that dead horse. And fans say that they are pay to win. So Bethesda just couldn't take Anthem sort of dominating the shitty news cycle for the last few weeks, and they were like, "Hey, let's do something
stupid."
That stupid. So there's sort of two parts to this in my mind. The first part is that Fallout 76 or Bethesda had said something along the lines of, "We're not going to sell anything except cosmetics in the item shop."
Yeah,
and this is something that's not cosmetic.
Yeah, they broke the promised before, so yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, and then the second part of this is it pay to win? Because the Gymquisition this week had an interesting sort of take
I didn't watch
this.
the Gymquisition. I did see it pop up, but I didn't get a chance to watch it just because I just wasn't feeling good yesterday. It was just woke up feeling blah. Not you blah, just me blah, you know?
Right. I got you.
So I'm not sure how he takes it, but honestly, okay. I think it really depends on the genre, where the line is drawn for pay to win. And for a survival game where the emphasis is going out, collecting materials, and every time you go out, you're taking a risk. The fact that you could bypass that core game loop with a swipe of the credit card makes this pay to win. It's not a huge pay to win like the previous one that they did with the costumes that added just an absurd amount of health if you had an entire squad filled up with them. But technically, yes, this is pay to win because it is breaking the core gameplay loop and granting power to someone that otherwise wouldn't have it.
So what he said, and I thought that was interesting. Have tossed this around in my head a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, but what he was saying essentially boils down to, these companies have spent so long screaming, no, it's just cosmetic. It's just cosmetic. Don't worry about it. It doesn't affect anything in the game. That regardless of whether or not you consider it pay to win or buying power or whatever, it is something that affects the game, the balance of the game in a tangible way, and that they might have pushed the narrative so far that anything that's not cosmetic only at this point is considered, pay to win, buying power by the general audience because they've heard the narrative so much. Oh no, it's just cosmetic. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't affect gameplay balance or anything. It's purely cosmetic. Which I don't think that it's necessarily pay to win, but I do consider it buying power.
Well,
because
that's the
you
thing,
are
is that,
bypassing.
That's the thing, is that you're kind of splitting hairs on pay to win versus buying power, because pay to win isn't just it isn't the Staples easy button. It isn't just a press it I win button. It's more of a pay for advantage. And that's what this is. Very rarely you encounter a full-on pay-to-win. You swipe your credit card and you have no chance of losing. It's very rare to see that outside of some of the more shitty mobile games. So It's more semantics than anything. In my mind, pay for advantage and pay to win have basically become the same thing just because of that entire gray area. And like you said, where they have pushed the narrative, pay to win is the polar opposite of cosmetic only now. So that is a very good point.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is, you're right, a bit splitting hairs, a bit semantics. I'm definitely not here to argue that you're wrong. That's probably one of those things that comes down to more like, how do you as a person feel about whether or not you want to spend your money on it or how it affects you? Like one of those deals.
No, sir, I don't like it.
It's definitely across the line, right? It's definitely in that territory. And then it just comes down to like, how much are you as an individual willing to split hairs? Especially
whenever a large part of their marketing campaign at E3 was talking about how it was going to be cosmetic only, their in-game item shop, and that you couldn't buy power, that it was cosmetic only, and it would be funding the development of future releases. Well, future content patches, which that's become, they haven't done that much, have they?
No, I don't think so. I think there's like a bunch of stuff that's air quotes on the roadmap, but I don't think there's been much released other than a few bug fixes, but a few bug add back ends, and then a couple of stuff from content. But mostly it's like skins and things like that. stuff for the item or for the air quotes microtransaction store.
Yeah, and that's the other thing
What-
is that, okay, they talked about having this for certain feats, achievements, or whatever you want to call it, and then for high-end raid content. So this is a raid item that they're selling? And an achievement item?
So it's being I don't know how much of this you've read or covered, but there's basically two different types of repair kits. There's a air quotes basic repair kit, which will take any like your item,
Yeah,
gear, whatever.
maybe I'm confusing the two because there is the Ultra Max repair kit that takes it above 100%.
Yeah. So the basic repair kit just takes your whatevers to 100% from whatever state it's in up to 100%, and those are the ones that you can buy with money. And then there's the improved repair kits, which they've said they're just going to be reward items for quests, achievements, things like that.
For
and the
now.
improved kits will take gear to, I think it's 150%.
Yeah.
So it lasts longer, and then it gets a stat boost while it's above 100%.
Yeah, which...
But yeah,
now. I've realized the slippery slope fallacy, but Bethesda has shown that they cannot be trusted. So
yeah.
I think for now is a very apt phrase at this point for Bethesda, don't you?
Yeah. I think it is. I think you're right. So, yeah. I mean, on the one hand, I just, am shaking my head, really? But on the other hand, I'm like, oh, of course they did. Of course they're doing this. And of course they're saying it's, no big deal and everything. And, all of the swirl of everything.
Yeah, modern game development, right?
I'm just going to keep playing my indie games. So far, Battletech's not hurt me.
Yet.
Although Battletech's more of a double A, not an indie. But, I mean, I play mostly indie games.
Yeah, I got my Warframe. It's basically just, I feel like playing something right now, but not really want to think about it too much. I'll fire up Warframe for half an hour.
Yep. I see on that all the time while I'm at work.
It's also, it's something I can play while I'm half asleep. Yeah, get the juices flowing,
Oh, yeah, get those juices flowing.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I mean, this is shitty and I don't like it, but...
But it's not exactly surprising, is it?
Yeah, it's not surprising. And I don't really know what else to say about it. That pretty much describes the whole thing and everyone's feelings on it, so...
Well, unless you're a diehard Fallout 76 player, because there are, of course, people defending it. Because, of course, there is, right?
There are, of course, dozen of them.
The entire player base of Fallout 76. I'll be shocked if Fallout 76 doesn't go free to play by the end of the year.
Me too. I did say at one point I'll play it if it goes free to play, but at this point, probably not, just because I can't be bothered to do so.
Well, here's the thing is that it doesn't take that long for me to download it, and I do have a Bethesda account. So...
Yeah.
I'll probably load it up just to take a look around, and then be disgusted by it and uninstall it. But yeah, nice. It's just it's such a shame because Fallout 76 feels like such a wasted potential. If it was, if they didn't focus so much on the survival element, which funnily enough, don't they have an entry on their roadmap talking about survival game mode? What was it before then?
I think so, and it was going to, a hardcore survival or something, which is in the other games that, you have to actually eat food and drink drinks and sleep.
Well, if there's not a poop meter, I'm not interested. Then you can shit in your shitty game. But yeah, Fallout 76 is just, it feels so squandered that I'm not sure if there's anything they could do to redeem it at this point, just because, for one, it's Bethesda, and they have gone more and more towards the lowest common denominator, and when they started development 2 or 3 years ago, Rust was the big thing. Oh, no. I just had a thought. I had a thought, and I'm going to have to share this now.
Okay.
They're going to do a spinoff on the next Elder Scrolls game that's going to be a Battle Royale.
That would be very far down the line.
Well, I didn't say that they were chasing modern trends.
They wouldn't be timely on their trend chasing. Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Or maybe Starfield has a Battle Royale sub-mode.
Man, I want Starfield to be good. I don't expect it to be, but I want it to be.
Oh, I'll be pleasantly surprised at this point if Starfield is decent. Not good, decent. Because of just how far Bethesda feels like they've gone off the tracks. They've been chasing industry trends for so long that they've forgotten what made the Elder Scrolls a good series to begin with. You know, the deep lore, the interesting locales, the interesting gameplay, the interesting quests. Instead, they just say, the modders could do that. And release essentially a toolkit.
Yeah.
Or an extremely bland mobile game. I think I figured it out.
Why not both?
Oh, no, that's why Elder Scrolls Blade is so terrible. They're expecting the modders to fix it. They didn't get the memo. So are we done ragging on this?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Big shocks. Fallout 76 still sucks. And Bethesda doing even shittier things. Speaking of shittier things.
A real-life U.S. politician is banned from EVE Online for alleged corruption. That is, corruption inside of EVE Online. Insider trading. That is what is going on here. So this guy,
Besserick Rebel.
What's his name?
Besserick.
Yes. Who is an attorney general for, what did it say here? The state of Indiana or Ohio? Virginia. He was the.
Oh, figures it's Virginia.
President
with
over to the general election. Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, I have to share this. Did you see the SNL skit where they were talking about? Okay, has anybody in state government not dressed up in blackface for Virginia?
Do what?
Yeah, there was a big scandal a month or two ago where the governor was dressed up in blackface. Or he couldn't remember if he was in blackface or if he was the one dressed up as the Klansman. And then he recanted it.
Huh.
And then someone else high up in government said that they dressed up as Michael Jackson in blackface in the 80s. You know, back when Michael Jackson was still black.
Right.
So SNL made a skit joking about it. They had not a press conference, but a meeting. And Keenan, one of the black members of the current SNL cast, was talking about how dressing up in blackface is bad to the assembled Virginia government.
Okay.
And they were and they said, okay, now has anybody dressed up in blackface? And everybody raised their hand.
Nice.
So yeah, of course it's a Virginia government.
So, anyways, this guy was a member of the player advocacy group, known as the Council of Stellar Management, and they have to sign NDAs to be a part of this group, and you have to be elected to it. And he had connected his EVE persona, or his EVE character, to his real-life political career, and he used that as a way to sort of campaign, be like, essentially, I'll use my experience as a real-life political figure to lead or be a member of this group with integrity and experience and blah, blah, blah. And then he used all the information he was able to get as a part of that to basically do insider trading within the game and make more money that way.
Okay, Rebel is his player name, by the way. It's Brian Shugarian is his real name.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So anyways, other members in the CSM brought their concerns to CCP, which the developers of EVE Online, and supposedly they investigated and found evidence that he had been doing this, and so they permanently banned all of his accounts and kicked him off of the council. And he says he's suffering fallback from it in his real-world political career, and he's denying that it ever happened, and he's saying he was, wrongfully accused and set up and all this other stuff.
Well, here's the thing, is that whenever you lie in real life, you can just claim fake news. When you lie in a computer game, there's chat logs.
Mm-hmm. And evidence that can easily be found by someone who's not trying to protect you.
And CCP gives no shits about you.
Yep, they don't care.
As a matter of fact, the fact that he got banned is probably good publicity for him. Holding the player council accountable.
Yeah.
Plus, it's funny as hell.
It is. It is. I had a good chuckle about this.
Yeah, you had a good tee-hee there for quite a while.
Tee-hee. Oh, someone here, the top comment, this article. So his defense against allegations of corruptions is that he's a professional politician? Question mark, question mark. Haha. Yeah.
Plus, he's talking about having blowback on his political career. Doofus, you linked it to your political career.
Yeah. At some point, I'm sure things like playing games will become much more widely accepted, and professions like a politician or whatever, and those things being anything, something that's not, corruptible offenses or whatever, but that's still seen as a big no-no by those guys, because most politicians are way older, and the fact that he basically got kicked out for cheating. Yeah, of course there's going to be
not just cheating, but insider trading, which is something that even the old guys can figure out is bad.
Yeah, the worst kind of cheating. You got caught with your hand in the cookie jar, the giant spaceship cookie jar,
space station cookie jar.
Yeah, but I thought this was funny.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious.
Serves him right.
Especially after, linking his political career to it so much.
Yeah.
Makes me kind of want to look at his Ballotpedia just to see where his stance is on certain financial situations. Just to have a good laugh, right?
I believe he was a Republican, so probably can discern that.
Well, I didn't even look at it
fairly quickly. I think it says in the article. I don't remember. I've already closed it. Because that's pretty much all there is to it. Just a tee and then move on. So.
Well, I wasn't even looking at his party. I was more wondering, his stance on certain issues. But, oh boy, right?
Yeah. So, moving swiftly on from a potential political minefield. Our final news topic of the night, Nintendo is the 9th most reputable company in the United States. It's the only gaming company to crack the top 10.
I'm sorry, I went to his Ballotpedia. In Richmond, I will work to reduce the regulatory and tax burden on Virginian small business.
Are you okay? Don't die on me over there.
I'm sorry, but him talking anti-regulation is just hilarious after this.
Yeah.
I had to know, right?
Yeah. Fair play. Fair play. So, the top 10 companies in the United States by... What was the specific thing that they said? Reputation. Most reputable. Mm-hmm. So, Nintendo was number 9. Which is pretty good.
Yeah.
The other some of the other companies on the top 10 I think are interesting. I mean, I'll just go down from 1 to 10. Number 1, Netflix. Number 2, Hershey. Number 3, Whirlpool. 4, Rolex, which I got a little chuckle when I was reading that too. I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know how many people who
would think of Rolex,
vote in this stuff have a Rolex. Yeah, I would think of Rolex. But number 5, McCormick and Company. Number 6, Barnes and Noble, which you made the joke earlier. You didn't even they're still around. Oh, okay.
Well, the one store that they still have is very good.
Number 7, Hasbro. Number 8, Costco. 9, Nintendo. And 10, the Lego Group. Which is
Let's see, the study by the Reputation Institute, which that's a thing, a data insights technology company and provider of reputation management, measurement and management services, assessed the reputation of more than 2,200 companies in the U.S. The precedent setting the undertaking included over 165,000 individual ratings, was conducted in January to February of this year. So, because you're wondering, how they set it up, well, there you go. They tabulated a bunch of reviews.
Yeah, 165,000 is pretty decent sample size. Again, the larger sample size you can get, the better. But 165,000 is pretty good. And I think generally I would agree with the overall ratings. The only one that really doesn't make any sense to me is Whirlpool. But, I guess it's the perception versus any actual knowledge.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have Nike on there. Nike was rated pretty highly somewhere else. Because I was looking at the comments on Reddit where I originally found this, and I believe Nike was 2 last year, and they dropped to 60th this year. But still, they're pretty high up.
Yeah, I mean that puts it in the top 100, which is
Let's see some other
in the top 50.
Some other notable less favorable judgments from last year. Google dropped 63 spots, falling out of the U.S. top 100 for the first time. Amazon reigned as number 1 in the study from 2014 to 2017, but didn't make it into the top 50 this year. Nike, number 2 last year, dropped to 60th. Influenced by the company's politically and socially charged year. Facebook woes continued to send it further back and has gone into free fall in recording one of the lowest reputation scores measured as part of the study. Campbell's experienced a setback as last year's number 1 is no longer in the top 10. So, yeah. So, it's not how people perceive the company as a whole. I think it's more, how they feel about it. Or, not their knowledge of what the company does, but how they feel about the company. What's their overall rating? Yeah. So that probably is why Whirlpool is there, even though they're kind of
Yeah, the quality of Whirlpool is much lower than it used to be.
It is circling the drain.
I see what you did there.
So, technically, only video game thing is Nintendo, which I kind of agree with, because, Nintendo does some stupid things with their hardware, but they don't lie to you.
No, and also Nintendo is, they're the poster, they have the poster boy, they are the poster boy, I don't know the best way to say it, but they're that for video games, and Nintendo generally has a pretty wholesome, people think of Nintendo as a, very family-oriented, very clean, very wholesome.
Until they see Bayonetta.
But I bet most people wouldn't connect Bayonetta to Nintendo in their minds.
True.
Again, this is very much just about a person's perception of a company. I bet the average person doesn't know Bayonetta is owned or funded by Nintendo? Did Nintendo buy the rights to it, or did they just
I think they
get
got the
exclusive
rights to the
publishing
second
rights? Okay. But, anyways, most people probably don't know that. So, I mean, they think of Mario, Zelda, but they think Link is actually think Link is Zelda, or Zelda is Link. However you want to look at that.
Yeah, it's whenever you start measuring perception instead of what the company actually does, some weird things happen.
Yeah,
like Rolex, right?
Yeah, like I mean, I do think of Rolex as being like super high quality watches, but I've never used one. I've seen one in person, but I've never used one. I've never owned one. I doubt I ever would, even if I had the money for it. Like, I'm just
Too
not
rich for your
interested
blood.
But I'm just not interested.
Actually,
in,
I wasn't going for a pun there, but let's go for it.
Status symbols or whatever, and that's what a Rolex feels like to me. Does Rolex make anything other than watches?
Well, let's see. Find your Rolex. Okay. How many zeros are in your bank account? Total? It looks like they just do watches still, which I have to admit is kind of weird at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, watches are more about fashion than functionality at this point. Pretty much everybody has got a phone or smartphone, tablet, computer around, that they use to tell time on. I used to wear a watch, but I haven't worn a watch in, God, 10 years maybe? I used to wear one all the time, but then I got, stopped being a student and was out in the world and didn't have to worry about, I could just pull my phone out anywhere. Nobody gives a shit. I'm not going to get in trouble for having it. So I stopped wearing a watch, just have my phone.
Damn, the cheapest Rolex. Care to guess?
$5,000.
Actually, not that expensive.
How much is the cheapest Rolex?
$1,200. Or sorry, $2,600. I mean, still fucking expensive, but not nearly as fucking expensive as I thought.
Yeah. I guess that's that perceived value thing.
And then it jumps up $2,000 to the next one. Here's the entry model. Maybe it's just me, but looking at a Rolex, it's just stupidly expensive for a watch.
Yeah.
And we're kind of fixated on Rolex, aren't we?
We are. We're way, way off the reservation at this point. Reading through this article, I thought it was interesting, like Nintendo being at number 9. But I mean, that makes perfect sense to me for the reason that we just said a minute ago. Like the perceived value or the perception of a company of like Nintendo is that they're very wholesome, very family friendly, very consumer friendly, and that would bump it up in a lot of people's minds, I think. I mean, it bumps Nintendo up in my mind. When I think of gaming, I forever will be a PC gamer, but nothing feels more wholesome to me than Nintendo. And when it comes to consoles, I do want a Nintendo Switch very badly. And I'm not interested in anything else that any of the other console manufacturers or companies are doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the full list.
PC and a Nintendo.
Because
it looks like you can download the data set for the whole list, but you have to create an account.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you have to pay anything for an account for this.
Yeah, I don't think the patrons would enjoy that.
No. But I mean, it said there's 2,200 something companies on there, so.
I'm just wondering what the second video game company is.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo, okay, thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense. Oh, hang on. I think I found a better list. Oh no, this is last year's, I think. This was released in March. Okay, so this is is March's lists, and Microsoft is up there. How often do they do this list? Even though Microsoft is technically not a video game company, they're a lot more than that. But okay, this is the March list? Question mark?
Microsoft is 31st. So Forbes has got the top 100 listed, not just the top 10. Microsoft is at number 2 with 31. In 31st.
Okay, on this one, Microsoft is sitting at 5th. But I'm not sure when this list is from. They just also call it a 2019 list, so it looks like they compile them once every couple months. But Nintendo is just outside the top 10 on this one at 12th. Let's see, Levi Strauss is at 13th. Google is at 14. Where is another video game?
Looks like Sony is not on the list.
Sony on my list is at number 6 on the older list. There's a lot of companies in here that I wouldn't have thought about, but in retrospect. FedEx is at 61? No. Not with the driver I get. I don't see another video game company in the top 100. Or, that I would consider a video game company. Because Sony is a weird thing where it's, they recently announced that they're kind of combining a lot of their branches. Sony, up until recently, is essentially like a tree. The main trunk is Sony, and then, it has the video game division, the cell phone division, the camera division. They're all different branches of the same company. But it doesn't make a lot of sense in the modern technology age because, the cell phone division needs the cameras, right? Well, there are two separate things, and they're developed completely separately. So it's tougher to combine the technology. So, their cell phone division is in trouble because of it, because they don't get the technology from the TV department for the screens. They don't get the technology from the camera department. So, very interesting, Just looking at this, Heineken is on here at 66 on this list.
Yeah, there was Microsoft was at 31, and then nothing else was on the list, video game related. So, and we don't even know if Microsoft is on there because of Windows or
I would imagine more
their gaming products.
I would imagine more Windows.
I would too.
But that's essentially just reaffirming that Nintendo is kind of the good guys ish for video games, or at least the perception of them, because we really know the dirty secret of Nintendo. Mario is a home wrecker.
He is. Turn to page 9 for the full story.
I mean, Bowser just tries to take Peach on a date. Then Mario shows up and, ruins the entire thing.
Indeed.
And then he knocks, in the scuffle, the Crown of Power leaves Peach's head and lands on Bowser. And then suddenly Mario can't control himself anymore.
Neither can I. Wink. All right. Yeah, I mean, that was just interesting.
Yeah.
Although I think we had a better time talking about Rolex than Nintendo. Welcome to the cultured part of the podcast, I guess.
Or uncultured.
Yeah.
Yeah. That number has too many zeros for me to even consider this watch. Can you knock at least 2 off?
Yeah, I'm on Rolex's website, and this just, doesn't connect with me at all. I don't understand. It's the world of Rolex. Rolex and tennis. Rolex and equestrian. Rolex and golf. Rolex and, yachting, mountaineering.
Well, golf.
Other things that you can click on. And it, gives you...
Okay.
a full spread of Rolex's history in this whatever.
So,
I'm just man, I'm not interested in any of this at all.
Okay, so you've played golf. Maybe you could explain this to me. Why is it so important to have a precision timepiece in golf? Outside of rich, snooty dudes.
It's a good question. Most of my time playing golf was spent, standing around talking to people, or driving the golf cart like an asshole, or trying to get the cart lady to give us beer even though we were underage. That was most of my experience golfing, so precision timekeeping was not needed. Also, I'm not sure why you would need a Rolex if you're into motorsport. I guess, though, they're more like the people outside. Yeah, Jackie Stewart, Mark Webber, all F1 people.
Oh, well, now it makes a lot more sense. Whenever there's the horrific crash, you can pass the Rolex down to the next of kin.
It goes to the second. Like, the first driver is in an accident, so the Rolex is passed on to the second driver as a rite of passage up to being first now. You are now the lead driver on our team. Wear this well.
Is that blood?
How was it not destroyed in the crash and the gigantic ensuing fire? It's a Rolex. It'll survive anything.
Only thing that survives more is the original Game Boy. There, I brought it around back to gaming.
And Nintendo specifically. Good job. So before we get lost in the weeds again, let's head on over to our community corner, which again is this week going to be just another game night spotlight, I believe. We didn't have anything, did we?
No.
Well, we did get one article last second.
Well, actually, we're up to two now
Discord.
because Jim just linked something about video game lighting, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Ah. Well, then those could be potential topics for next week once we've had a chance to research them a little bit. But keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. Love getting stuff from you guys, either in email or on Discord or in tweets.
Yeah, which Twitter was kind of dead again. I'm pretty sure that Twitter account's still active.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm okay if we don't get much engagement on Twitter when we get in our Discord and whatnot, or in person when we have game night, which we did a Monday night. Played Flashpoint.
Yeah, maybe we should have talked about that on the games we played, because that was fun.
Flashpoint was really fun. I mean, Flashpoint is a board game that we play through Tabletop Simulator, but I mean, I'd like to play it again now that sort of all of us have had a refresher course, because Ghost had to sort of reteach us all how to play.
Yeah, I have to admit that was
a refresher course we could play again.
That took until about halfway through the game for me to really kind of perk up, because the going through all the rules and all the setup was rather boring.
Yeah. That's okay.
And also, I was kind of tired.
We rolled for lots of explosions. We just barely won. We had like one piece of... So, I mean, just in general, listener, if you've never played this before, what Flashpoint is that you're a group of firefighters working together to rescue people from a burning building. And you have these sort of damage tokens that are applied as the fire rages on throughout the game and destroys more and more walls. And when all the damage tokens are used up, the house collapses and you lose. And we had one token for like our last 3 rescues in order to win. And we somehow managed to finally get that stupid kitchen fire under control and rescue people. And not only did we rescue enough to win, but we went ahead and cleared all of the potential survivors, and we rescued like 10 people instead of 7. And you only need 7 to win. That was very satisfying.
Yeah, especially right there at the end where we were both strategizing. Okay, how can we do this in as few moves as possible?
How can we get this person out in one turn? Can we do it? One turn, well, one round for each of us to minimize our chances of explosion. But it's a lot of fun. We'll definitely be playing it again, and now all of us can kind of work together to teach any new player a lot faster.
Yeah, I'm also I brought up a list of the top 20 cooperative board games, because I kind of like the cooperative side of things.
I do too. I typically prefer cooperative board games to competitive ones, just because there's less, people getting upset and people having to sit out and wait. Which, I mean, in our group, for the most part, people don't seem to get upset and take it out on one another in the middle of the game. Except Kyle. We take out everything on Kyle.
Well, to be fair, it's usually his fault.
Yeah, he deserves it. But there does often, like, when we did King of Tokyo, within the first 10 minutes of the game, there were 2 people knocked out, and then they had to sit there for like 40 minutes. So, with cooperative games, that typically doesn't happen. But we should focus in on some more cooperative games, be it board game or otherwise. Learn how to play some of those. I know of a couple that I could teach.
Well, I'm looking at like the top 5 of this. Robinson Crusoe, Ghost Stories, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Never heard of that one. That's from 1981. Pandemic, Aeon's End, Too Many Bones, Legends of Anor, Dead of Winter. Does that count as a cooperative?
Dead of Winter can... I mean, yeah, sort of. You do have the one person, or potentially the one person who is got a selfish goal that they're trying to wreck the camp, but otherwise everyone wants to survive the zombie onslaught.
One that looks interesting on here is 5-Minute Dungeons. Takes just a few minutes to learn, but there's a ton of replay value in the box, according to this. Everybody gets their own deck based on the characters they're playing, and then in real time, everybody plays cards to take down some enemies. The final boss's dungeon gets tougher and tougher, which makes it intense and a rewarding experience. So, may want to check that out. It's one of the top real-time board games on this website.
Yeah, I'd be game to check that out.
So, likely more board games coming up.
Yeah, although I did a bad and forgot to figure out what we were going to be playing next week. So, at the time of recording, I don't know. Stay tuned to Discord to find out, because I'll be asking everybody over the next few days and make sure to post something up over the weekend whenever we get something sorted out. But otherwise, that's it for Community Corner, aside from you, Rage, telling them where they can find us.
Oh, well, I was looking at the Sherlock Holmes games, and that looks interesting. It has 10 different cases. But if you wish to contact us, you could do so by emailing us vglpodcast@gmail.com, tweeting us at VGLpodcast on the Twitter, because that's where you tweet. Or you could hop on Discord. You find the link to that over on our Podbean account, vglpodcast.podbean.com. There's a link to our Discord on that lovely, lovely site.
Sweet. So, do you want to do a doobly-doo discovery?
Of course.
Be-doo. Sweet.
And I get one instantly.
You usually do. What you got?
A game that you probably haven't heard of, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy.
Nope, never heard of that. What is this Phoenix Wright you speak of?
Objection!
No, I of course know what Phoenix Wright is before anyone.
So this is the first 3 Phoenix Wright games that were released on Game Boy Advance, I believe. But it's essentially a crime drama visual novel / detective game. I'm pulling from like a half a dozen different genres, but Phoenix Wright is a weird game. And also has a very JRPG sense of itself, kind of wacky, but at the same time taking itself seriously. Looks like it has both the English and original Japanese. Let's see. French, German, Korean, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese language support will be added into the game in a post-launch update. But all 14 episodes spanning the first 3 games in one glorious collection. There you go. Phoenix Wright. So, you're up.
Yeah, I'm staring at this, trying to figure out what it is, but what I should be doing is grabbing the link for it. It's called The White Laboratory. And it is a physics-based tower defense and real-time strategy game.
Interesting.
Where it looks like you create towers that actually move and do things, and you...
Howl's Moving Tower?
Yeah, you move the towers around, and the towers do different things. It looks like some of the towers shoot, but some of them are melee-based, and they swing blades around or roll around and smash stuff up. It looks interesting. I like the art style, too, that very minimalist, even with colors. You just got very muted. It's like grayscale with some light reds and maybe yellows and oranges. This looks interesting. It's got mixed reviews. It's been out, it looks like, for 2 weeks. But looks cool. Ah, shit. I just clicked off of my discovery queue. By accident.
Well, since you have to reload, how about my next one? That's literally the next one on my list. Islanders. Islanders is a minimalist strategy game about building cities on colorful islands. So, sort of almost an idle game, but not quite. I mean, to be honest, city builders kind of go one of two ways. Either very hard simulator or kind of just a sandbox to do things in. And this looks like it's firmly in the sandbox side of things. This is by the same developer that did Superflight. So the art style is very familiar if were interested in that game. And if they pull off what they did with Superflight, where they have the procedural generation down, this could be, a sandbox that you could mess around with for a very long time. It's not out in early access. It's just a full release, and it's a $5 game. So there you go.
Gotcha. So this, I got one that sounds interesting. I'm just going to read this. It was very intriguing. Bow to Blood, Last Captain Standing. Become a captain. Fly your ship and command your crew as you compete to become champion in a winner-take-all reality show. Build relationships and plot betrayals to avoid getting voted off the season and become the last captain standing. Optional VR support. This just sounds really interesting. Like a really neat concept. Yeah, it looks sort of like... Actually, it looks like there's some... It's recommending FTL based off of this. I was going to say the command aspect might be inspired a little bit by FTL. I mean, this is the first-person type of game, so it's definitely not, designed to look or play like it, but there's some command stuff, and looks like some, random, so it's a roguelite, so that would be similar, probably another reason why it's recommending FTL as a similar type game.
FTL and no, it's not even FTL for me. It's Homeworld and Galactic Civilizations.
Interesting. I got FTL and Space Rogue as the 1 and 2. But anyways, it looks neat. I like it. Or at least like the look of it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I mentioned Sherlock Holmes before. It looks like there's no mystery to this one. Curious Cases for desktop or VR. In this 3-chapter story, you play as a modern-day legend detective, Thomas More. He has solved more cases than one can count. Where others hit dead ends, he gets to work. So a first-person 3D detective game. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. There's a couple places where it looks a little jank. Like pre-bought assets, but looks like it's rated fairly positively, but it only has 17 reviews. So, interesting. But, detective games, it's one of those things that I do love my detective stories, but at the same time, detective games are a minefield because if they get too difficult, you pretty much have to be thinking exactly like the developer to be able to fix it or to solve it. But if they're too easy, they're not really that much of a story. Let's see. It looks like this isn't their first...
Oh, hey, I just got Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. It looks like they've done a few like escape room games. Let's see. Elder Scrolls Online. Nope. The expansion.
I got Islanders also.
I'm getting somebody like your level trash.
Yeah, I had a couple of games that didn't even have English language support, so I just skipped past that.
Yeah, no, that's just an expansion for another game. Oh, that looks terrible.
I am nearly done with my queue.
Yeah, okay. Oh, interesting. All right, I'll throw this on the pile just because it looks like it's a free-to-play game, and it's a CCG. The Horus Heresy Legends, Warhammer 40K card game.
Okay.
No idea about this. Warhammer 40K is a literal minefield for video games because the rights holder just they're the anti-Disney with the Star Wars license where they just gave it to everyone. It didn't really care about the quality. It looks like it's a pretty standard CCG from what I could tell from the screenshots. I'm not sure what's really supposed to define it from everything else outside of just, hey, it's Warhammer, right?
Yeah. So, I don't know what to make of this. At first, so this game is called Wasteland Survival. I'm getting over to drop a link in. At first I was like, oh, is this based in the Wasteland universe?
I think that's one I saw that I just skipped.
Okay. But it's
that's one I skipped because it just looks terrible.
Yeah, the only reason I'm bringing it up is to just be like, hey, this is not in the Wasteland universe. It doesn't look like maybe someone trying to capitalize on some recognition, or hell, maybe they just got lucky with that. But yeah, it's a free-to-play zombie survival crafting game that's got a top-down sort of thing. I mean, it's free to play. I guess you could check it out if you wanted to, but it doesn't look good.
I mean, if you want a survival game, check out mine instead. Don't escape 4 days in a wasteland. Survive through 4 days at the end of the world in there's a post-apocalyptic point-and-click thriller where your choices could keep you alive or not. I mean, it looks better, right?
I like that. Could keep you alive or not. We don't fucking know.
Looks like this is their first game, or at least first game on Steam, by the developer. The publisher is pretty well known, though. Armor Games.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they have 11 games on Steam right now, and some pretty decent ones as well. They have Soda Dungeon, which is a pretty decent game, if memory serves correctly. It's more known on mobile, though. So, yeah.
So that's my whole queue. Yeah. I got 3 today.
Yeah, that was my queue. I must have been infected by you because I got a lot of shit. And some of it I passed on to you inadvertently.
Yeah. And I mean, I would have brought up Phoenix Wright, but you got it first. And Islanders look neat, so I probably would have brought that up, but you got it first, so.
So I'm stealing your good stuff.
Yep. And I got one of your crappy ones. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. So, that's the queue over, which means it's time for me to say, hey, Rage, hit him with the socials.
Well, once again, I've been Caffeine Rage. You can find me on YouTube, Gaming with Caffeine Rage, on Twitter, Gaming with CR, and eventually, maybe someday, on Twitch, Caffeine_Rage. And you've been?
I have been Gaming Psychologist. If you want to find my stuff, you can do so on the YouTube by searching for Gaming Psychologist. And I do want to say hello, a couple of new subscribers that I've got. I assume that you listen to the podcast on YouTube, which is cool. That's why we put it there, so that people can listen to it there. But I don't, nothing else regularly goes on YouTube, so enjoy. If you want to find me on Twitter to see me tweet about whatever it is that's on my mind at the time, you can do so by following me at JMA4707. And if you want to be my friend on Steam, you can do so by sending a friend request to JArthur4707.
And if you wish to let them know what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Multipass.
Multipass.
So since we've done our personal stuff, let's do the podcast stuff. Once again, you can email us, VGLpodcast@gmail.com with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, or just tweet them to us, VGL Podcast. Our lovely, lovely patrons can find out more or you could find out more about becoming one of our lovely, lovely patrons at patreon.com/VGL podcasts. And our lovely patrons have paid for our Podbean account, VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the RSS feed, our show notes, and links to both our stuff and stuff for the podcast, including the Discord, which has been actually fairly active tonight. I guess we woke them up.
Must have.
But if you don't wish to have the RSS feed, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, or where, well, far better podcasts can be found, and somehow we've slipped on. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and our Discovery Key music is Doobly Doo by the same artist. You can find his work at Incompetech.com, and
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye-bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
You know, something that really struck me whenever I was rewatching a bit of Fifth Element today was just how blatant the product placement was, but how much it actually fit in the world. Like the giant McDonald's.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's the thing, is that whenever product placement is done well, it kind of blends into the background. The problem is that modern product placement is just so egregious.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's just because the contracts, it makes it so that they can't blend into the background anymore.
I don't know. Maybe. I was watching Friends the other day, and I have to say, as far as product placement goes, Friends was probably one of the best I've ever seen. Because there is just, I mean, if you look for it, there's shit everywhere. But it's all in the background, and it makes sense. Like, you know, there will be cans of Coke sitting on the counter in the kitchen in the apartment. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Of course there would be Coke cans there because it's a kitchen, and there would be drinks and food.
And they're slobs.
But they're just, they are. But they're just sitting on the counter. It's not like everyone else is holding a Coke being like, yes, would you like to try a sip of this new delicious Coca-Cola? Which there was, I think it was CSI Miami.
Oh, yeah, the
Subway.
Subway.
Subway. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically an ad read. But
Yeah.
then again, CSI isn't exactly the greatest of shows to begin with. Let's be perfectly frank.
No. The original definitely had some moments, and I enjoyed sort of watching it, but it wasn't great. And then I never enjoyed CSI Miami.
One interesting thing was when I was watching Back to the Future with the director's commentary, is when they were talking about the California Raisins. They had a marketing deal with them. Because Back to the Future is another one of those movies that has some rather blatant product placement, but you don't recognize it. Like the very beginning of the movie when Marty's wearing the sunglasses, that's product placement.
Yeah.
But the big one for the was that they got in trouble for a little bit was the California Raisins Association. This was back in the 80s when the California Raisins was a big thing, right?
You know, I was having a conversation at work today about California raisins.
What, did somebody hear through the grapevine?
Hi-oh. No, one of my coworkers is from California, and somehow it came up, and he was talking about them, and then we all got to talking about them in the front office.
But anyway, the movie, originally, the group wanted just, have a big bowl of raisins, just this massive bowl sitting on the banquet table. And the director, Robert Zemeckis, got in a big fight with the with the lawyer representing them, because he said it looked like a bowl of dirt sitting there when they were shooting it. And they actually got in trouble because the way they worked it into they covered the contract was when Marty came back to the present. The hobo with the song on the radio.
Yeah.
that was covering it, and they got pissed about it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's another subreddit. Did I ever send you Movies in the Making?
Yeah,
okay.
you
I
did.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, I've been on there several times since you did.
Yeah, it's just kind of how the sausage is made, right?